The tax tug-of-war continuing to be a hot topic among voters as we enter the final stretch before midterm elections. Joining us now, Congressman and Minority Whip Eric Cantor, one of the authors, co-author of Young Guns, A New Generation of Conservative Leaders, and we know Paul Ryan well. He's one of the other guys. And then I don't know Kevin McCarthy, different Kevin McCarthy than the one that
the character actor who recently passed away.
Just passed. He's from California, right?
Yeah, we'll have to get Kevin on the show.
We'd like to have him on the show.
I know he's a big fan.
How many people? Did you watch yesterday?
I saw some clips.
You saw some clips, and I wonder if a lot of Capitol Hill was watching, just to see on a business network whether there would be a noticeable shift in tone. Did you detect one?
You know, Joe, I didn't. I think it was really more of the same. I mean, what we've got is a president who is insistent that somehow the businesses, the job creators in this economy are not the key to a recovery. You see it in the policies over and again. The latest stance on taxes.
He says he didn't say any of that yesterday, though, Eric. I mean, you know, when they ask him a question about it, he says absolutely not. He respects the free market. He understands that the government isn't going to be the source of jobs. But you think actions are different?
It's more do as I say, not as I do. And, you know, I know he said that some people in this country think I'm too hard on business, but there are a lot who think I'm too soft.
Yes.
And, you know, again, that right there tells you, I mean, there is just a general suspicion and not a willingness to admit, look, I mean, people are out of work. And this recovery, in all the newspapers this morning, the announcement is the recession is over, and it was over in June of '09. But let me tell you something, anxiety persists out there, and the lack of strength in this recovery is what's so striking. And it's about the need for growth again. And the Washington policies that have been put forward by this administration over the last 20 months has created, as we all know, so much uncertainty now that business is paralyzed. And this president just does not seem willing to recognize that and to change course. And, you know, the voters are going to have their say.
Well, nothing's going to change till then. You've seen the latest? You must, I mean, this is your business to know the numbers of every poll and every close race. What is your estimate now of gains in the House?
I'm not going out and limb that far.
Is the tan guy going to be Speaker?
If you're speaking of John Boehner,
isn't he coy?
John Boehner is my candidate for Speaker. If we take the House come November 2nd, I think all things look very good, Joe, but 42 days still is a long time. Anything can happen.
The president has singled you out before, but never 9 times in a speech. I said the tan guy just as a joke, because they have definitely decided this is their Pelosi. This is the guy they're going to try to use to scare voters into thinking he's, I don't know, some kind of right-wing wingnut, I think is probably what they're going to try to.
Oh, of course. I mean, they'll put that name on any of us. But again, the voters aren't buying it right now. I mean, because of the real hurt that's out there.
You know, the NBER said yesterday that the recession was over back in June of 2009. How do you read that as a politician, as somebody who's talking to people back in the districts, and what kind of effect is that having on the election this time around?
Becky, I don't think it has much effect. You know, there's sort of the statistical assessment that the recession's over, because in reality, people aren't back to work.
Unemployment's risen since then.
Right. More jobs, and I think the New York Times had it in this morning, more jobs have been lost than created over the last year. And so that's a net job loss. And that's affecting people. And 9 out of 10 people in this country know somebody who's lost their job. That's real. That is seeped into the psyche of the people. And they look at what's going on in Washington, and to them it is about this disconnect.
So, Congressman, if the Republicans are successful and take back the House and you have the leadership position there, what would you be doing? What's the agenda that your party would put forth?
Well, you know, I know that Chris Christie, the governor from New Jersey, is on next with you in this panel, and I think he has put forward an excellent model for us in terms of what we need to be doing. I look at my own state, Bob McDonnell, the same kind of leadership as a governor. You've got to make some tough decisions, and hopefully we as Republicans will put forward a very aggressive agenda that goes right at the spending, that we get into this commitment that we're going to rein in the size of government, all in the name of trying to create growth again in this country.
when it's been about a week since Boehner made that comment that if his only choice was to preserve the tax cuts for the middle class, of course he would vote that way. He clearly was not speaking for the party. Do we know that at this point?
There is no question that John Boehner, he's a small business guy. He came to Congress knowing full well it's tough to go in and have an ongoing concern when you got to pay more taxes. The position of Republicans in the House, I was with Mitch McConnell last night in the Senate, is we don't believe you ought to have tax hikes for anybody right now, especially in a recession.
So why would Boehner say that?
Again, Carl, I can't put myself into that shoes to understand why he would say it, but I think that what he was intending to say is Republicans aren't backing down on this.
Well, you said that in your op-ed, right? Yeah. So it looks like the party really is trying to walk back whatever he said, however he said it on that morning show that day. Yes?
Yes, and Carl, the truth is, in the House and the Senate, both, there's a bipartisan majority who stands with us in that notion. You've even got, like, Peter Orszag out there saying, you know, we ought to be making sure these tax rates don't go up for anybody, especially the job creators.
He said that if politically, if you can't get one through, he said you should take the other. If you can't get the idea of tax cuts for the middle class through, he said in that case, he would rather see for everybody than for nobody.
Yeah, the interesting piece is, though, Becky, if it came to the floor, that bill would pass to stave off tax hikes for anybody, both in the House and the Senate.
Representative Cantor, I know that your party is really tough, got a tough line on spending and look at everything. If you take control of the House and or Senate, could you tell us that you're going to look at corporate welfare as much as social welfare in terms of spending? Because one of the problems I have, you had a guest on last week at Squawk who really blasted the president, and yet when it came time to talk about his industry, the auto industry, he was all for the bailout. and it's always, I don't want a lot of spending, but don't touch my spending.
He likes cash for clunkers.
And that's the concern I think a lot of people, whether Democrats or Republicans, have when we talk about cutting spending. When it comes time to touching my program, everybody says, well, you can't touch that. The auto industry is essential. We'll talk more about that later. Or healthcare spending is essential. Or this, and it's two sides of the same coin. And when we're looking at non-essential, social welfare programs, and as much as anyone, if they're there, they ought to be cut. I think we got to look at corporate welfare as well.
I totally agree with that. And I think where we ought to be focused now is we've got to get government back out of the business of intervening in industry sectors, deciding which industry or which player is a winner, which is a loser. We should be much about trying to say that America is going to be the place for innovation and competitiveness. And the best way to do that is create an environment by lowering tax rates across the board, by providing incentives for folks to put equity into new ventures to startups so we can see jobs created. There's no question corporate welfare as well as the other programs need to be on the table, and we need to get government back into its right place in terms of balance with the private sector.
Congressman, Haley Barbour's today saying that the Tea Party and the GOP have a nice alliance that's going to end up being adding to the victory for the Republicans in November. But, I mean, there's some things happening there that you guys got to be a little bit uncomfortable with. Let's talk about the candidate in Delaware. I mean, you're kind of a mainstream guy. Are you bummed that the Castle's not the guy?
Joe, I don't know much about Christine O'Donnell. I certainly serve with Mike Castle.
She's not the only one either,
you can read about her, though.
Yeah, and Harry Reid might snatch victory from the jaws of defeat as well, based on an outlier. Look, what some people think.
Tea parties, I mean, let's remember what it stands for. It's taxed enough already. I mean, they're like the tip of the spear in terms of the frustration that's out there across this country. The people in Delaware spoke out last week and said, you know what, enough of the spending, enough of these individuals who go to Washington who say that they're there for us and make promises you can't keep, and we want to rein in government and get it out of our lives and take our country back.
But Congressman Cantor, they're now facing with O'Donnell a woman who has since, we found all these videos that she was talking about having occult sessions, that she was dabbling in the occult. Now there's news that she was spending money from campaign donations to pay for her rent and other personal expenses. I mean, does that concern you as somebody who has been in this game a long time and knows how the game's supposed to be played?
Again, I don't know her. I don't know the specifics, Becky, of all that. Certainly those are allegations that one needs to look at. And if they're true, certainly troubling. But again, I don't know.
More broadly, Mike Bloomberg has called the Tea Party a boomlet in the way that Perot was a boomlet back in the 90s. Is that Is it a boomlet or is it a phenomenon when you look at it?
The opportunity to work with folks in the Tea Party, I think, is real. And again, the Tea Party being those individuals very focused on the fiscal issues, very focused on the fact that government has grown way too much, and the policies in place over the last 20 months have sort of facilitated this paralysis that we see. That gives us an opportunity, if we commit ourselves to what we can agree on, which is reining in the government and cutting spending so we can create jobs. I think it's an opportunity.
What are your feelings in reading the tea leaves about what was Sarah Palin doing in Iowa, and what would that mean in 2012 if, you know, you think it's impossible, maybe some people think it's impossible she could head up the ticket, but anything's possible with what we're seeing right now. And what would that mean for the Republican Party? What would you think? Would you back her wholeheartedly?
You know, first of all, you're right, Joe. This year is something that I don't think any of us expected. Who would have thought we would sit where we are today 20 months ago? So anything can happen. Certainly, I don't know what Governor Palin was doing in Iowa. One could imagine, but
she
listen,
didn't jog because she didn't want to put on any running shoes.
Listen, she is a powerful force. Yes. I mean, she's an inspiration to a lot of people.
Right.
She brings a lot to our party. You know, there are folks out there who say, look at what America should be about. And that's what people are having some angst with this election. It's more than just a choice. It's about what kind of country we want to be. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Sarah Palin, she's a working mom. She's got, what, 5 kids. And she became governor. I mean, that's an extraordinary feat. I mean, any of us who have kids and know the difficulties in managing a household and pursuing a career, that's an unbelievable thing that she's accomplished. Now, she's certainly created quite, you know, a controversy over a lot of what happened in the last presidential campaign. But suffice it to say, you know, she is a force, and she can bring a lot of positive elements to our...
The best laid plans of the leaders of the Republican Party, she's not going to consult with them about what she does in 2012, and that could throw a big wrench in the works of all.
It keeps the party on its feet. It provides energy, and I think all for the good.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman Cantor. We love having you in.
I'd love to be here.
Good.
Thank you very much.
And you're getting a mug, too.
I'm all about it.
All right, good.